Welcome to SG1 Media Centre with me, Will Hextall. I'm joined on the big green sofa today by Tina Walker, the chair of Cycling UK Stevenage, and Jill Borchards, a maths teacher, a cycling leader, and a breeze champion. We're going to take a look back at the Stevenage Cycling Festival 2020 and a look forward to the world's biggest cycle ride, which is next Saturday. So welcome both. And Tina, if you'd just like to give us an overview of how the cycling festival went this year and how you pulled out the stops to make sure that we could still celebrate it in these times where it's a bit more difficult to do the large scale event that you would normally do.
Yep, no problem. We had a fabulous cycling festival this year. In spite of not being able to meet in large groups, we were still able to meet in small numbers. So we had quite a few cycle rides. I believe there were about 20 plus rides that were run during the festival week, and most of them, certainly all of mine, were well attended. They were good fun rides, and the weather was good and kind to us, so we didn't get too wet.
No, that's good.
The odd shower, I think, but nothing major. There were a huge number of virtual events that were going on, and within the cycling group as a whole, we collected our mileage, and that was quite interesting. We tried to do the Tour de France.
Did you?
We did.
Oh.
We did that in 3 days.
3 days to do the Tour de France?
Yeah, so then we set off to tackle the next one, which is the Giro d'Italia, and we didn't quite finish that. I think we got to stage 18 of 21.
Wow,
So
that's still very impressive.
10 days.
No, and you of course commuted here today on your bike. Is that right?
Of course.
So you are living proof that it can be done dressed in business wear.
Yeah.
So how might cycling come in handy in our day-to-day lives if we're commuting and going to work?
Well, generally cycling's great because although, you might be out in the weather, your travel time is always predictable. You can guarantee how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
20 minutes to half an hour is a good cycle ride. Personally, my mileage is about a 10-mile radius, so if I've got to do 10 miles, I'll cycle. Beyond that, I'll think twice. That's when my car comes out.
And say if I was a CEO of a big business or something, and I'm a little bit worried about splitting my trousers or getting a soggy bottom if it's raining, and I'm cycling to work, what might I do to avoid a wardrobe malfunction in the team meeting?
There's 2 quick answers. The easy one is to cycling clothes or other clothes and then change when you get to work. So if you're the CEO, install some showers and lockers and solves the problem. But if you aren't the CEO and you don't have that influence, then maybe you could cycle, just simply set off a bit earlier and cycle slow.
So nice and early, and that's quite good as well. I find a nice bit of exercise in the morning can get your heart pumping and really set you up for the day.
Very much so. I actually set off and allowed 45 minutes to do a 20-minute ride this morning. To make sure that wearing a dress and heels would be nice and comfortable.
Yeah, that's a sensible decision to make. And of course, Jill, you have been cycling for most of your life. Is that right? What started your kind of your urge to cycle?
I think it was just something when I grew up and where I grew up, it's something you did, and it was just the way you had your independence. I grew up in a small town in suburbia, southwest London, and it was the way you got around. So it was the way I could go and visit my friends. It was the way I could get a Saturday job and get there on time. It was very, very much independence. And from a sort of women's perspective, sort of historically, cycling was a big part of women getting independence in the suffragette movement. I've been always really fascinated in the historical side of it like that.
Of course,
but I think, and within Stevenage, with our cycleways, a lot of the children I work with, they do think that the fact they're able to go out and actually cycle safely on cycleways gives their parents confidence, which in turn gives them more independence to do things maybe a little bit younger than they might if they grew up elsewhere.
Yes, and of course part of what you do as well as a cycling leader and you as well, Tina, is to encourage young people and people who are less confident on their bikes to actually get out there and give it a go. And I think what you're trying to do as well is kind of eradicate this image that people get, that if people are going out cycling, they're doing wheelies up and down the cycle paths and all that. Is that right?
I think it's great that cycling. Right, and
Yeah.
if some of it is on the sort of skills side, I mean, it was BMX, now it's some different things. That's
Yeah.
that young people out in the fresh air. But I think my passion is for cycling to be not just a sport,
Yeah.
the real Tour de France, but also as something practical, a way of getting about, a sort of sustainable transport, and a way of keeping mind and body healthy, as well as getting on with your daily life.
Yes, and not to mention, as you just said about the environmental factor with cycling. So tell me, what can we be doing, by cycling to help our environment and help our mental health as well?
Cycling is just such an easy, relaxed way of gaining time in your life to just spend thinking. It's amazing what you can do when you're just pootling along and your mind's whirring off at a different plane almost. So yeah, you really do get a different part of the world when you're out on a bike.
Of course, and to see so much greenery as well.
Yeah.
I read somewhere it said that green and trees and fields is calming in itself.
It is. And also it's amazing that you get huge amounts of wildlife that doesn't run away because we don't make the noise.
No, instead of having a big engine as such. So that's really great. And so you've had many sort of trails that you've created for cycle rides. Tell me about the Heritage Trail.
Yeah, a while ago now I was asked, as part of Stevenage Cycling Festival, to set up a heritage trail,
Yeah.
and we did it. It took quite a while, working with the museums people and various other bits and pieces around, trying to find all the interesting places to take a ride, and then join the dots up and make it into a ride that was rideable without being too long, because you don't want to set a challenge that's too difficult for people to do.
No.
So we'd set a ride, it's about 12 miles. I can't remember what that is in kilometres, about 20.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasant ride, and I know Michelle and Jill, you did it last week, didn't you?
Yep.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
I'm sure Michelle will talk about it later.
Yeah, and you're utilising the various cycle paths around the town. Has cycling always been a huge part of the town's culture? Or has it, more recently sprung to life? Of course, during lockdown, we saw people getting on their bikes and then going out cycling for the day, because that's all we could do, really, isn't it?
I mean, historically, Stevenage was very much it's really, really innovating with regard to cycle infrastructure, and the cycleways in Stevenage were really quite famous and had lots of visitors coming to see them. The town was built for cyclists, and some of the things that are particularly notable are the underpasses and the ways that on the big roundabouts for the traffic, the cyclists go underneath and they have almost their own junction in the middle of the roundabout, and it is where we are completely segregated for a lot of the town from the cars. I think over the years, when Stevenage was first built, people didn't have cars. Now car ownership has come in more and more. Our road system is actually quite good as well, and it means that we don't have the traffic jams that some other towns similar size have.
Of course.
So there has been that sort of shift towards driving cars more often. But I do think that now people are seeing cycling as something they've been enjoying doing over lockdown. It was brilliant seeing so many more people out and about on the bike paths. And I think our job now, and what I've been trying to do, particularly as a Breeze champion and with our ABC rides for Cycling UK, is try to help people see how what they've enjoyed doing, maybe just going out for a sort of a loop on the cycleways with their families, how they can turn that into going from A to B.
Yeah.
And it's just becomes part of their everyday life. So a day like today, where I've got lots and lots of errands to do, I can go out and about on my bike doing those. Maybe it takes a little bit of time, but I'm not feeling like I have to squeeze into my day a trip to the gym. Just had my
Yeah.
exercise, and my exercise has been outdoors. I've been seeing people. You interact with people on the cycleways. You have that sort of human connection on the way to work. You're not
Oh,
just
that's
listening to the
good.
radio. You're making eye contact. You're smiling. You're sort of seeing the dog walkers, etc., etc. And that is all part of how it's not just your physical health; it's your mental health as well. And helping
Yeah.
people see the routes. There's so many little sneaky shortcuts and cycleway connections that you can live in the town for decades and not
Yeah.
know, but they can make a real difference between being able to keep mostly on cycleways rather than being forced to use some of the road sections that there aren't cycleways on.
And it's certainly good for people. I mean, like myself, I love looking at little plaques and sort of investigating locations. And I think there's a lot in Stevenage that's under our noses that we don't even know exists. But
Yeah.
by going on errands on your
Yeah.
bike, you can go to these places, and that's something you don't get if you're in a car, because you're
Yes.
whizzing past
We
locations.
we connect with a lot of the green spaces. One of my favourite views of Stevenage is at the top of Datchworth Hill, where you look down and you can see how many trees there are in Stevenage.
Wow.
A couple of weeks ago, I led an ABC Cycling UK ride, and I had two women who'd driven over from Buntingford with their young children. The two boys came with us,
Yes.
and they were absolutely incredulous at the end. They're going, I didn't realise there was so much open space in Stevenage, because they drive round on the dual carriageways, the roundabouts,
Yeah.
and they don't realise that inside those areas you've got places like Hampson Park, you've got St George's,
Yeah.
all sorts of places, even Sheppelbury. People who are in cars don't actually realise it exists, whereas as a cyclist, Sheppel Lane, it's a sort of a regular cycling route for anybody who's actually making their way about the town by bike.
Amazing. Yes. And you've brought a book along
Yes.
with you today.
This is my book. This is my Bikes and Bloomers, and this goes back to what I was saying about sort of cycling when women were first cycling, and the
Yeah.
idea that Victorian women were
Ah.
inventors, and they invented clothes that meant
Yeah.
they could go from cycling to their everyday
That's
everyday
incredible.
sort of
Yeah.
what they were wearing. And I think that's, again, it's one of my passions, that you don't have to have the kit.
No.
Cycling is not about the latest kit. It is about a bike that can be picked up relatively cheaply, often second hand, just kept in good order, and you can cycle in whatever you happen to be wearing. I agree with Tina
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily cycle very fast. You're just going about your everyday life, and maybe you just wear one less layer when you're going. And I often, on the way to work, might sort of take off a coat that I've set off in. I'll just take off a coat on my way, pop it in my basket,
Yeah.
and then carry on and arrive cool and collected, ready to just get on with my everyday whatever I happen to be doing.
And heels aren't a problem
Heels are
either.
not a problem, and I always say I'm incredulous as to how someone can cycle without heels on flat pedals, because if you've got a heel, what would you use other than a heel to hook your pedal up?
Yeah.
That's how I cycle.
So even men who are
Yeah.
watching, well, get yourself a pair of heels, and we'll all go out
If
cycling.
you haven't got toe clips or cleats, you need heels to cycle, definitely.
Brilliant. And I think that's really fascinating about how women and Victorian women were innovators
Yes.
industry, and you don't really get to hear that. So just to remind viewers, what was the name of the book?
The
if they're
book is
interested?
called Bikes and Bloomers, and it even has patterns in it. And I've
Oh.
got to one day get round to making one of these garments with lots and lots of buttons, and it's almost
Oh.
like drawstrings that they have. Quite incredible, absolutely incredible.
Fantastic.
I've got an interesting one for you at some point, probably for next year now, but there's a thing called the Fancy Woman's Bike Ride.
Oh yes.
I think we should be looking towards doing that soon.
Ooh, tell me
Yes.
what's that all about?
That's dressing up in dressy outfits rather than, I mean, I've just come in a dress.
Yeah.
You could come up in something really ball gownish
Yes.
and
Oh wow.
flowers and hats and out on bikes.
Decorate
And
your
I think-
bikes.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
that's
We need that in
something we need to
Stevenage.
do.
So Cinderella, really, she
Yes.
didn't need to get on that big carriage with horses. All she needed to do was hop on her bike, really. But yeah, I think that is really
It's
great.
sort of like next weekend we have got this world's biggest bike ride.
Yes.
And I think that's our vision for that, is not necessarily wearing whatever you happen to be wearing, but getting people out on their bikes and really celebrating the cycleways.
Yes.
Lots and lots of people. It's a really good excuse. In Stevenage, we really ought to be a big part of that. Out on the bike
Oh.
paths, everybody getting those bikes out the sheds and enjoying their
Fantastic.
bikes on
Yeah.
the cycleways.
So the world's biggest cycle ride. Yes, that I think I'll join in as well.
Jolly good.
It sounds good fun. So we're now going to go over to Tina is going to swap Deputy Mayor Councillor Michelle Gardner, who is a fairly new cyclist, and thanks to Jill and Tina and other cycling leaders, Michelle managed to gain her confidence on her bike. So we're going to talk to Michelle a little bit now about her experience. Hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us here at SG1 Media Centre.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome. And, of course, wearing your bling down that end of the sofa.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Of course, Deputy Mayor, you gained your confidence. Tina, is that correct?
Jill and Tina introduced me to the idea of taking a bike that had been sitting in my garage for over 10 years that we'd bought for our daughter, Natalie, taking it out and having a go. I hadn't been on a bike as a child. I never rode bikes. But I took this bike out with Tina. She was the first one I went out with. And she took me around the tennis courts at Sheppelbury Park. She drove me, helped me to ride round. And that was really my first initiation, let's say. And I was very nervous because, one, I do like to wear dresses generally. I do like to look smart, and cycling to me didn't afford me that opportunity in my mind at that time. Well, after that session I went out with my friend Jill. And I can't believe it to this day. I thought I did 26 kilometres actually on. Thank you. I'm going to claw back some of those kilometres.
We did
on
a few
the heritage.
extras. We definitely did some detours on the heritage ride.
I've gone from not being able to ride to doing the heritage ride, which was an absolute joy.
That's
it
incredible.
Was a killer. There were hills there that really did shake up my poor hips, but it was so enjoyable. And the whole idea of riding now to me is not a fearful one. It's more a joy. It's more a case of I can't wait to get on the bike now. I went out yesterday with Jill and we did 11 miles. I've gone from doing nothing
to some real distances.
For me, real distances. A blip to these two, but for me, real distance. And I can see the benefits. I mean, you meet people, as Jill said. You get the fresh air. You see the landscape. You see places you've never seen before. And it is actually very, very relaxing. You get a stressful day. You can't think of all the politics and everything else. What you think of is, isn't this lovely? And I've mastered that hill. I go up a hill now, especially Martin's Wood, good Lord. Martin's Wood, I didn't even get off this time, so I'm overjoyed that it has instilled in me that I can push myself, I can enjoy it. I'm now coming into the town instead of bringing my car all the time. I bring my bike. What I'm worried about is linking. I really, really would like to see better links between where I go along the shops, because I don't like leaving my new-found cherished bike just anywhere. So I like to, with a car, you park it up, you lock it up. With a bike, you can only lock it to something. You can't secure it with a cover. You can't lock the boot or anything. So you can't put things in it. So you have to take it with you wherever you go.
Have to,
and having to walk with a bike hitting you in the back of your leg each time as a newbie, that's uncomfortable.
So comfort is a priority there for you. And of course now, appearing across the town, we've got the big green bikes, which have become a social media sensation, with people sitting on the bikes and posting pictures. I don't know if you've seen them all over Twitter and Facebook, and it's become a real tourist attraction. But they are there for a reason, aren't they? And I've seen the one in the Old Town outside Tesco.
What we've got to realise is those bike storage pieces are actually, it's taken one car space away and accommodated for 8 cyclists. So that means if 8 cyclists are using it, there's 8 less cars potentially on the road. That's got to be a good thing.
Amazing.
And I have to say, I mean, speaking to people who just don't go out on a bike because they think, oh gosh, what about my hair? What about my clothes? What about my And by the way, I'm wearing flats. And I will tell you, they're not the best thing to wear because I slipped off the pedal today. But,
oh dear.
But I will be changing that aspect.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea of getting on the bike and just going, even when it's a little windy, just going, you forget all the hassles of life. You forget it. Oh, I got a thumbs up on the road today. I'm riding along the
lovely.
cycleway, and there's a huge queue, and all the cars are queued up, and I'm thinking, I'm not there. And I got a thumbs up today.
Oh, that's like
so
ticking the box there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jill. Thank you, Tina, for basically inviting me to start thinking about riding a bike and actually doing it. And I don't now have any fear. I still have to learn maintenance. I still have to learn how hard to pump the pump. Sometimes I'm going at great length, using up all my energy, sweat pouring off my forehead.
Yeah.
And getting the tyres to where I feel comfortable. But you know what? It's a great joy.
That's wonderful. And clearly as well, Jill has had a huge involvement in sort of teaching you, as well as Tina, the kind of basics for getting back on your bike. And there's a lot of stuff I didn't know that can make things a lot easier, like going up the hills, just by knowing exactly when to change your gear and what gear to put it into.
These are exactly the sort of things we do on our starter rides. We always meet at the bike hub in Fairlands Valley, and I'll always take ladies and other groups on a little route that first of all goes up a little incline, just make sure everyone's comfortable using their gears. And with the rides we're doing, these beginner rides, there's no such thing as a silly question. There absolutely isn't. And to sort of talk about how the gears work. Because I think we're used to getting in a car and we don't really understand how a car works. Whereas with a bike, you're a bit more connected with it's a much simpler piece of machinery. And you can sort of see the logic of how when you move the gear onto a different size wheel, yes, that is going to make it either easier or harder when you're going uphill or whatever. And it's knowing those things. And I think for adults, sometimes learning those things new that we maybe associate with something you might have learnt in childhood, it doesn't matter. You're never, ever, ever too old to learn to ride a bike. If you go abroad, you look at some of the European countries, people are using bicycles well into old age. And it is something that some people actually get to the point where they're not able to drive, but they're still very able to ride a bike. And I think that's something we need to embrace.
Absolutely.
I love the fact you had a thumbs up from traffic.
I did.
That is
I was
great.
chuffed to bits, actually. I thought, what have I done? I thought it could only be one thing. I'm on a bike.
Yes, and I think that where we're sort of on the more campaigning side of things and sort of getting better facilities for cyclists, I think we need to really make sure we move away from this idea that is portrayed in the media of a them and us, cyclists against drivers. We're actually talking about people who are cycling or people who are driving, and often they are the same people who may drive, who may cycle at different times.
Definitely.
And if we are encouraging more people to cycle for short distances, actually that keeps the roads themselves clearer for people who have to drive for particular reasons. I always think that if a car has to be maybe just a tiny weeny bit paused behind me, well, if I wasn't on that bicycle, I would be on a car in front, and that car would be sitting in front of them in the next traffic jam.
Exactly.
Of course, and those who are struggling to find parking spaces in the Old Town, for example, where you've got one of those green bikes, they might be driving along getting really frustrated that they can't park. But if you hop on your bike, how simple is it?
And it's just making it more convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coming on that, I
Yes, of
know
course.
that the council have actually arranged to have extra spaces made available in the Waitrose car park, from what I gather.
And that's
so
free.
and that's free. So
Good.
people's noses shouldn't be put out, really. In actual fact, this is all to help improve the environment, improve our health. We're looking at, or the council are looking at doing the best for Stevenage, really.
Good.
And it's all positive. What I would like to say, though, is they're also putting in more cycle parking, and it would be nice if people were to send in their thoughts if they're using bikes about what would be more convenient for them, because I think it's cyclists that know what works for them. For me as a newbie, coming into the town centre, having to walk all the way around town is difficult. I'd like to leave my bike, which is precious to me at the moment, somewhere where I can see it. I know we can't do that with cars, but we can't lock the bikes up in the same way. So
No.
I would like to see.
So you've got that security.
Yeah, and I think the council are doing the best they can.
That's good. That's wonderful to hear. So if anybody is watching at home and you'd like to send in your thoughts, we will gladly take those, and we can have a chat about that afterwards. And if you've got any other thoughts, just send them via social media or other means. So we're looking forward now to the world's biggest cycle ride. Bike ride.
World's biggest bike ride. That's what you need to search online. Cycling UK nationally are organising that, and obviously as a Cycling UK group in Stevenage, and we're looking forward to being part of that. And I like what they're saying. They're saying it's not about distance or duration, it's about riding your bike, riding your way together on one day, and the idea that it doesn't matter how fast you're going, how far you're going, it's just getting out on bikes and enjoying cycling.
Getting out there, and it's all about working together, isn't it? And to to feel better in ourselves with our mental health, to be healthier, and to protect our environment, which by cutting down those emissions, we're doing exactly that, aren't we, really?
And get to know your town.
Yeah,
because there are an amazing amount of things that we don't see when we're in a car.
Yeah. And I think, if you live in this town, then, surely that's what we should be doing, getting to know our town and its heritage and all those little nooks and crannies that are great to investigate. So
I'd thoroughly recommend this heritage ride. Again, just search online, Stevenage Borough Council heritage ride. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to spend a whole afternoon and allow plenty of time, to look at things and take photos. You go round and you really become a tourist in your own town. I've lived in Stevenage, over 30 years, and I went to little bits and I discovered things that I'd never ever seen were there.
Yeah.
So I thoroughly recommend that to people.
Great stuff. Well, thank you both, and to Tina as well, for joining us here at SG1 Media Centre to talk cycling. And I suppose there's only one more thing to say, and that's on your bike.
I hope we'll see you there.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Good. Thank you.
Cool.
Well done, guys. Thank you. Did you manage to get a picture?
Yeah.
It would be nice if we could get a picture of all of us, if you wouldn't mind.
Was that all right? I was trying to get around it.
Well done. Well done.
Good.
Yeah?
It doesn't say the
Bless you,
Iron Man
Ray,
challenge
thank you.
either, does it?
Can we get a picture, please?
Yes. Oh. Yes. Get. I have to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Could you do that? Yeah. I think I remember something that there used to be where you went round and you could scan your little card. That was great. I loved that. Ah, yeah. 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 It's great fun. Yeah. Ah. Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Did you? Yeah. Oh. That is. I love things like that where you can track it. It just it makes it more worthwhile, I think. How's that looking, Ray? Oh, is it best I sit here or go behind? What's? Yeah. Yeah. No. It does look quite nice with the blue lighting behind, doesn't it? It's got that studio feel, I think. Yeah. Yeah. See that we do. Those boards over there mostly just covering up all our stuff, all the junk that we've collated. Yeah. Oh, Winston wants to be in it now. Oh. Thank you. Yeah, you're very welcome. I obviously tried to alter that from before. Yeah, I'm glad. When it's live, it's it's a strange feeling, isn't it, compared to pre-recording? Yeah. How's that looking? Oh, the first bit. Oh, so you missed out the whole first bit. That's it. Facebook is terrible. Is there a problem with the Wi-Fi? Look, I'm connected now. A moment ago I wasn't for some reason. Let's see if I can find it. Is it on the recording? Yeah. Yeah. Did it record on that first introduction?